In Hollywood, we call this portrait I'm holding an 8x10 glossy. Like the amount of fan mail an actor receives and the number of popularity polls he wins, the number of fans who write in for a picture like this is another way a studio can spot a rising star, such as Jeffrey Hunter.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks for the kind words, Gig.
Well, there are cold facts to prove them. And I think after our audience sees you in the new John Wayne picture, The Searchers, you'll need a couple of caddies just to carry around your press book. Which reminds me, give me a hand, will you, Jeff?
Sure.
Jeffrey brought these over to us. 6 reels of film. Almost enough for an entire picture.
7 reels. We've already put the 7th on the projector, remember?
Right.
And it is an entire picture. About the making of a picture. You see, when John Ford was directing The Searchers, he put a camera to work behind the cameras. He got a record on film of everything that happened, from the time ground was broken for the first setup in Monument Valley, Utah, to the time the last scene was wrapped up.
And during the next few weeks here on Warner Brothers Presents, you're going to see this film. For example, you'll not only see the cast at work against one of America's most spectacular scenic backgrounds, but you'll relive an even larger story of how the Searchers Company brought roads into a wilderness where roads have never existed, into the farthest reaches of Monument Valley. Outdoor country for a great outdoor story. You'll see how pioneers from Hollywood brought electricity into the trackless Navajo country to light a complete city, with facilities for feeding and housing almost 300 people. Up goes the wardrobe tent, and now it's shooting time. A grip levels the tracks for the camera dolly, a mammoth piece of precision machinery. And here it is, pacing John Wayne and Jeffrey Hunter as they ride by. You'll learn some of the tricks of the stuntmen's trade, and you'll watch as they work out shots that will leave you breathless. Calculated risks that sometimes end in injury, but are sure to provide a picture with its thrills. You'll stand beside director John Ford as he gives star John Wayne his final instructions for a key scene. You'll visit with Monument Valley's friendly Navajos. You'll also see them turned into bloodthirsty Comanche Indians by our makeup men. You'll meet the ladies of the cast, Vera Miles, Natalie Wood, and Olive Carey. And you'll be there riding the camera car through the Indian village as the Searchers attack the wild Comanche to get back their stolen women. The climax of a scene that is also the climax of the months of planning and building that go into the production of a picture like The Searchers. That certainly is an exciting sample, Jeff.
Yes, it's actually a diary of a motion picture. The first of its kind, so far as I know.
And I think when you see it in full at our next meeting, you'll agree that it's no more to be missed than The Searchers itself, which Warner Brothers will soon be presenting at your local theater in VistaVision and Technicolor. Well, thank you very much, Jeff, for letting us have these and for bringing them over personally.
My pleasure, Gig. So long. Goodbye.
So make a point of being with us when we show you the first chapter in the story of the making of The Searchers. I'll be back in a moment, but first a word about next week's television presentation. You know, about this time of year, people all over the country are consulting a travel bureau much like this one, planning their summer vacations. They count their money and their time, and quite often they ask the man behind the counter for something impossible. For example, they'd like to go from the heart of old England, from Sherwood Forest, Robin Hood country, to the sands of the mysterious Sahara. And en route to the Austrian Alps, they'd like a look-see into the jungles of India. And please get them home in 2 weeks. Impossible? Well, for a travel bureau, maybe. But for the location department of a major studio, it's a cinch. Because, you see, for motion picture purposes, there are sections of Southern California that look exactly like all these famous places. And they're all within a leisurely 3-hour drive of Hollywood. In fact, one of the reasons why the pioneer filmmakers selected Southern California as the film capital of the world is that, strangely, this area masquerades as many different locales. But stranger still, if we picture people of the far west who want to find western scenery with sweep and grandeur like this, we must travel 1,000 miles to the northeast. And the cast and crew of the new John Wayne picture, The Searchers, did exactly that in order to locate a natural western setting big enough for the story they had to tell. They journeyed here to Monument Valley, Utah, 1,000-square-mile domain of the yucca, the cactus, and of the bones of earlier pioneers who had died searching this land for its fabled treasure of Indian silver. Navajo country, a land practically untouched by civilization. The director of The Searchers, John Ford, transplanted a bit of Hollywood into the Utah wilds. Work started while last year's winter rains were still turning the approaches to Monument Valley into seas of red mud. The problem, to produce a motion picture 175 miles from the nearest town. Everything had to be trucked in over terrain, which the geologists tell us is the dried-up bed of an ancient ocean. Just getting into Monument Valley was almost as big a job as shooting the picture itself. The first thing brought in was water, measured by the gallon into Lister bags like the Army uses. Then came this heavy-duty pump to service the primitive Indian well. With their water supply guaranteed, the other services moved in. Electricity to power not only the new water pump, but modern building tools to speed construction, both of the base camp and the sets needed for the picture. Here is one of them, a settler's home complete to its stone chimney, just as it might have appeared in the year 1863, when the story of the searchers takes place. And here's another house that will appear in the picture. During the action, you'll see this one entirely destroyed by fire in an Indian raid. So an entire town with a population of 258 cast and crew members was set down in the middle of a brooding wilderness. Now, as the shooting day draws near, the pace picks up. And so do the spring winds hurtling across the valley. Up goes the wardrobe tent with costumes for hundreds of Indians. They live here, but the costumes they wear in the picture came from Hollywood. So do these mattresses, one each for Hollywood tenderfeet who aren't used to sleeping on the desert floor. Plus equipment for the mess hall and ceremonial lances for the battle scenes. And now it's A-Day. A for action on one of the greatest outdoor pictures ever made. Camera platforms are carried out into San Juan River. Here is the very spot where a scene from a story like The Searchers might have occurred in real life. Director John Ford orders action. Scene one, take one. We'll be returning soon to Monument Valley to visit again with stars John Wayne, Jeffrey Hunter, Vera Miles. And at that time, Natalie Wood will show us around the valley's famous Navajo reservation. Meanwhile, I want to thank Mr. C.V. Whitney, producer Marion C. Cooper, and director John Ford, who made the behind-the-cameras trip possible, and remind you that all the wonders of Monument Valley, along with the thrilling story, are yours when you see The Searchers at your local theater in VistaVision and Technicolor. I'll be right back, but first a word about next week's television presentation. We're now in Monument Valley, a vast desert land that straddles the Utah and Arizona border. This natural wonder is at the moment serving as the location for the new C.V. Whitney picture, The Searchers, directed by John Ford and starring John Wayne. I'll be back in a moment with one of the stars of the picture to tell you about this land and its people. The monuments which rise proud and straight from the desert floor were carved by thousands of years of erosion. But the years mean little here. Although surrounded by 20th century America, this land is barely touched by the civilization around it. Almost untouched by time itself. For this is the home of the Navajo, the largest Indian reservation in America. Here the people live almost precisely as their ancestors did 100 years ago. The Navajo Indian was once the fiercest raider of them all. But with their defeat at the hands of Kit Carson in 1862, they turned to peaceful pursuits. Being a highly adaptable people, they borrowed the idea of weaving from their neighbors, the Pueblo Indians, and improved upon it by using wool instead of the then hard-to-get cotton. Just as there was a century ago, the staff of life of the Navajo is still corn, still being ground into meal by the same process that has been used for generations. Nor has the Navajo accepted the advances of modern medicine. Here, under the watchful eye of Fats Holliday, the head medicine man of the tribe, a sand painting is being completed. The Navajo still puts his faith in the healing powers of these mystic symbols. Into this land that time forgot, John Ford brought men and equipment to film The Searchers, to capture the color, tradition, and echoes of the past. The danger and excitement of the days when the fierce Comanche Indians cut a bloody trail through the West. The now peaceful Navajo have a warlike history of their own, and even today are considered the finest horsemen in the world. So all it took was a little war paint to convert them into hard-riding, bloodthirsty Comanches. And here comes one of the prettiest little Comanches of them all, Miss Natalie Wood.
Hello, Gig. Welcome to the reservation.
Well, thank you. It's nice being here. And congratulations, Natalie, on your recent Academy Award nomination for Rebel Without a Cause.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very versatile. We've just enjoyed your performance as Maid Marian, and now here you are as a Comanche. But despite the costume, you don't really play an Indian in the picture, do you?
No, that's right. I play a white girl who was captured and brought up by a fierce Comanche tribe.
Oh, I see. And how do you get along with the Indians?
Well, in the picture, fine. But here on location, I think I sort of amaze them. You see, the Navajo keep covered from head to foot, and they regard my sunbathing in a swimsuit as rather immodest.
They've become over-civilized. And their forefathers used to run around in considerably less than a bathing suit, and they were considerably less friendly, too.
Yes, that's right. The raids of the renegade tribes were the greatest dangers that faced the frontier people. And it is on just such a raid that I get captured as a child. John Wayne and a company of rangers are searching for Scar, the warrior chieftain who has captured me. But Scar doubles back on their trail, and suddenly the hunters become the hunted.
Well, that's certainly an exciting scene, but does John Wayne ever find you?
Well, he was always on Scar's trail, and one day he caught up with him and found me, only to lose me again. In this scene, I have come to warn Jeffrey Hunter and John Wayne.
Well, you're the prettiest reason for joining the Comanche Army I ever saw, and thank you very much, Natalie Wood, for being with us.
Well, thank you, Gig.
We hope that when you see the searches in your local theater in Technicolor and VistaVision, the bit of Indian life we have shown you here will contribute just a bit more to your enjoyment of the picture. I'll be back in a moment, but first a word about next week's television presentation. I hope you enjoyed our picture. I know I'm going to enjoy the pictures I'm taking. For this is Monument Valley, one of the most beautiful scenic spots in America. And today it should be doubly interesting, for we have man-made sights to add to nature's circus. Director John Ford is shooting some exciting scenes for his new picture, The Searchers, starring John Wayne. The company's just down the road, so let's drive over and watch. Welcome once again to the land of the Navajo. This is an especially happy time here in Monument Valley. Yet it has nothing to do with the ancient tribal laws or customs of the Navajo. The current excitement stems from a visit to the valley by director John Ford, whom the Navajos have adopted into their tribe and named Natalie, which means the tall leader. The man next to him in the uniform is the star of the searchers, John Wayne. In the past weeks, we've shown you some of the difficulties and hazards in shooting a picture here. You've seen roads built and a city erected to transport and house the hundreds of people that comprise the cast and crew. Well, today, most of those difficulties are behind us. The roads, such as they are finished, the buildings up. And the advantages of filming in Monument Valley begin to accrue to us. In addition to the great scenic wonders, we have an endless supply of real Indians. Indians who get their clothes from the Hollywood wardrobe department after slight alterations. For the grime and dust of the valley must be ground into both the costumes and the men. The Navajo Braves are magnificent horsemen, but still Director Ford could not ask them to take the falls that he will require in many of the sequences. So for the dangerous spills, he hired professionals, Hollywood stunt riders. And while these men are brave, they are not foolhardy. They minimize the chances of being hurt, not only for themselves, but for their horses as well. For the personal safety of each depends upon the other. These men, who can take a nasty spill without getting hurt, have trained their horses to do the same. And now that men and horses are fit and ready, the next step consists of converting these pleasant young men into fierce, bloodthirsty Comanches. Over to one side, the cameraman is getting ready to perform his job. A job that is normally not dangerous, but which today involves some element of risk. He will photograph the riders leaping a barrier from the point of view of a worm. Let's watch. Well, that was a little too close. The camera got in the way of a flying hoof. But it's all in a day's work. And the Hollywood crews never lose their sense of humor. But despite the spills and hazards, the work must go on. The hot and tedious work of shooting a picture on location. The dangerous work of filming an action picture, where even the camera crew must join the stuntmen in an Indian raid. After much hard riding, the shot is completed, and the men return for a well-deserved rest. It may seem a bit odd that from this type of work, it is their feet that hurt them the most. But for all the excitement of the chase and all the beauty of the great outdoors, The Searchers tells a tense personal story of two men, played by John Wayne and Jeffrey Hunter. Two men thrust together by their hatred of a common enemy, but torn apart by the angry passions within them. And while the scene between John Wayne and Jeffrey Hunter was being photographed, a second unit has been rehearsing another sequence. For just as in the picture, where the search goes on despite innumerable handicaps, here on location, the work goes on despite the sun, the sand, and just plain fatigue. They're taking advantage of the daylight to carefully plan and rehearse a scene which will be shot at night. The cliff overlooks the village of Scar, renegade Comanche chief. Jeff Hunter has asked the Rangers to be allowed to slip into the village in advance of the attack. Yes, I think it's an exciting story, a tender story. And when you see the C.V. Whitney picture, The Searchers, in your local theater in VistaVision and Technicolor, I think you'll agree that it's also a beautiful picture. I'll be back in a moment, but first, a word about next week's television presentation.